Deep in the countryside of Boone County, Illinois is the infamous Bloods Point Road, a secluded 5-mile stretch about 10 minutes south of Belvedere. Bloods Point Road is a popular destination for thrill seekers and ghost hunters due to the sinister name and creepy legends associated with the old bridge and cemetery at the end of the road. Local legends speak of mysterious dogs and phantom cars that chase vehicles down the road at night and paranormal encounters at Bloods Point Bridge where a terrible accident is said to have occurred a long time ago. But is the road really haunted, or are the stories nothing more than urban legends that have taken on a life of their own? In this video, I explore the haunted legends of Bloods Point Road and Cemetery and uncover the truth behind the stories that have made it a legendary destination for those in search of the supernatural. Whether it's haunted or not, scary stories have surrounded Bloods Point Road since the 1970s, if not earlier. One of the oldest legends of the mysterious road involves Bloods Point Bridge, about 4 miles west of the cemetery, near the tiny town of Irene. The bridge is very high, with short guardrails and a steep 30 to 50 foot drop to the train tracks below. The legend says that in the 1950s, a loaded school bus was traveling back from a party when a horrible accident unfolded. The bus was traveling over the bridge when the driver lost control of the wheel and smashed through the guardrails, plummeting onto the train tracks below. Everyone on board the bus, including the driver, lost their lives in the alleged accident. Another version says the bus was hit by a train while crossing the tracks, but this version is impossible since the only way to cross the tracks is by driving over the bridge. According to legend, strange events started to occur at Bloods Point Bridge in the years following the fatal bus accident. After dark, some people have claimed to hear distant cries from the darkness of the train tracks below the bridge and from a forest nearby. Another part of the story says that if you drive to the middle of the bridge at night and park in neutral, the ghost of the children will push your vehicle across the bridge and back onto the road. Although it's certainly possible that people have had paranormal encounters on Bloods Point Bridge, the haunted stories related to the rumored bus accident are likely nothing more than urban legends. It should also be noted that while fatal car accidents have occurred on the road, no official records of the bus accident on the bridge have ever been found. The supposed bus accident has been investigated multiple times, including my own research, which produced no evidence of the crash ever occurring. Another old legend involving the infamous bridge is a story of Witch Beulah and the alleged hangings that took place in the 1800s. The story claims a woman named Beulah once lived in the area and was believed to be a witch after the locals suspected her of dabbling in witchcraft. After being shunned by the community, Witch Beulah unleashed a catastrophic curse that produced devastating wildfires and disease that destroyed livestock in the area. There are different versions of the story, but the legend says Beulah eventually hung her family and then herself from Bloods Point Bridge and was buried in the cemetery down the road. Drivers have allegedly confronted the ghost of the witch on the bridge and along the road at night, and the stories claim the witch appears to be in a decomposing state with a rancid odor permeating the air around her. Although the story of Witch Beulah is often associated with Bloods Point Road, the legend actually began in the 1960s on McGregor Road in a secluded area of Byron about 30 minutes away. McGregor Road is a remote area with miles of farmland on all sides, and although the story of a witch living here might sound scary, the truth behind the legend is actually quite sad and worth noting. The alleged Witch Beulah was actually a retired schoolteacher named Marie Buskey who lived alone in a small house near North Weldon and McGregor Road until the 1980s. It's unclear exactly how it all began, but Marie Buskey was harassed relentlessly by teenagers due to false rumors of her being an evil witch. From the 1960s into the 1970s, several newspaper articles document the late-night vandalism and harassment that took place at Marie's home. Over the course of a decade, multiple kids were arrested for trespassing and even for throwing rocks through the windows of her home. Marie eventually passed away in an assisted living facility and was said to be a wonderful woman who loved working with kids as a schoolteacher. The story of Beulah the Witch is also sometimes confused with the bizarre history behind South Weldon Road, only minutes away from McGregor. At the intersection of South Weldon and Montague, it was rumored that Witch Beulah lived in an old house that once stood at the end of Weldon, but the house was actually occupied by a religious cult. In the 1880s, the Weldon farm was home to a religious cult led by George Schweinfurth, a self-proclaimed prophet and second Christ of the Beekmanites. The Weldon property consisted of the main farmhouse known as Heaven, and the house that stood at the end of the road was called Hell. The Hell House was home to cult members who had either fallen out of line with the leader or those who had not yet earned their stay at the Heaven House down the road. It's unclear exactly what went on inside these homes in the late 1800s, but the farm's mystery led some people to believe the Hell House was occupied by a witch. The old section of South Weldon Road that led to the house now sits on private property and has been closed to the public for many years. But if the Witch of Bloods Point Road in Byron never existed, then how did the name Beulah come into the picture? There are no records of a Beulah buried in Bloods Point Cemetery, as the legend claims, but the stories could have originated from a bizarre account of a girl named Beulah Andrews who was accused of being a witch by her own family. In 1913, Rockford police went to the home of J.L. Johnson after reports of a fight and the family accusing their daughter Beulah of being a witch. Neighbors later told the police the family fought on a regular basis, and Beulah's siblings claimed they were suffering from terrible headaches and seizures caused by her witchcraft. It's unclear what happened to Beulah or the Andrews family after this altercation, but the recorded event could have fueled the legends of Bloods Point Road in Byron. One of the main attractions on Bloods Point Road that is often rumored to be haunted is the old cemetery just east of the bridge where the road ends. The historic cemetery is one of the oldest burial grounds in Boone County, with graves dating back to the 1840s. Most of the older graves belong to early settlers of Flora Township, and although the cemetery is named after the Blood family, who were the first settlers in the area, they are not buried on the grounds. The cemetery features a few interesting monuments and the original iron gate that has been carefully painted and restored. Unfortunately, Bloods Point Cemetery has fallen victim to vandalism more than once, with some of the headstones being smashed into pieces or spray painted. The cemetery is now carefully watched by residents who live nearby, and law enforcement actively patrols the area after dark. While most of the scary stories revolve around the bridge and the road itself, the cemetery has its share of haunted legends. Some people claim to have witnessed floating orbs in the cemetery after dark, while others have allegedly heard moaning coming from an old storage shed that has since been removed. There are also claims of phones and electronic devices malfunctioning inside the cemetery and out on the road. Another scary legend of Bloods Point Cemetery is the mysterious dog, or Hell Hound, that has allegedly been seen at night near the front gates and even out in the road. One man even claimed to have witnessed the mysterious dog while traveling near the cemetery at night with a friend many years ago. In an interview for the Streets of Fear series, the man said he was driving 40 miles per hour when a dog head suddenly appeared in the window and began growling and barking before vanishing. Scary stories of mysterious dogs at Bloods Point Cemetery have circulated for years, but it's unclear how many of these claims are real eyewitness accounts or just fabricated stories. Many locals consider the scary stories of Bloods Point Road to be completely untrue, while others are convinced the entire road and cemetery are haunted. And even though most of the stories are based on urban legends, many people continue to visit the cemetery in hopes of seeing a ghost or a floating orb. Even when I visited the cemetery to film this video, I found a discarded box from a Ouija board near the gravestones. The road's dark reputation has been a problem for law enforcement in the past due to vandalism and trespassing. At one point, the county even changed the lettering on the street signs before eventually removing them altogether to avoid theft. But what is the real story behind Bloods Point Road, and where does the name come from? The name might sound sinister, but the road is actually named after Arthur Blood, who was the first settler to arrive in Flora Township in the 1830s. The word point comes from a point of timber near the family's farm. The Blood family later moved out of the area, but they originally lived on a nearby farm that was later sold to the Myers. The Myers farm can be seen on this map from 1905. This stone house on the former Myers farm may or may not have been the original home the Blood family lived in. Real estate websites indicate the house was built in 1900, but the home is likely much older than that. Although the history of Bloods Point Road and Cemetery has been distorted through urban legends, some of the paranormal encounters could certainly be true and have nothing to do with the original story plots. But I'm curious to know your thoughts. Have you ever driven down Bloods Point Road? Did you have a strange encounter on the road or in the cemetery? Leave a comment below and share your experience.